New Mike.
And there he is, Mr. Collins. Arrow, I give to you Laura Beil. She is all yours until 20 after.
I'm going to take 5 hours with her because she's got a heck of a story here.
Okay, condense that 5 into microseconds.
Laura, my God, I mean, what you could have 25 years of seasons with this, because I mean, Sarah is one of millions that are pulling these kinds of stunts off.
Yeah, although hopefully not many are doing it to the degree that she did.
Right.
I mean, she did it really well for a really long time.
I gotta ask, only because is there Munchausen's disease involved in this, or is this I'm a codependent and I just need the attention?
Who knows exactly? I can't get in her head, and I haven't talked to her. But it certainly appears exactly like Munchausen's. I mean, if you listen to the episode where I was talking with the Munchausen's expert and he was describing the symptoms, I mean, it sounded awfully familiar. So I that's what I would think. I mean, I think she needs help. But I have to say though, I don't know of any official diagnosis.
I'm amazed at how she was able to work her way into so many lives. I mean, you talk about somebody who would make a great radio salesperson. I mean, if she can convince these people that something is wrong when it's really not, my God, that's a superpower.
Yeah, and she was good at it. She was really good at it. I mean, imagine like the mental discipline that it takes when you're in a camp for people with disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
This was not in the podcast, but I was told that one of the stories Bethany told is at one point they were moving her and they accidentally slipped and dropped her.
Oh my God.
And she fell onto a bathroom floor and she fell. I mean, most of us in that situation, if you saw yourself falling instinctively would like reach out and throw out a hand to break your fall or something. And she didn't do that. And that I just couldn't believe that she was able to stay in character that well.
You talked about those camps. How about that camp in Texas in 2015? It was for the disabled, and yet she played right along with that, and she got people to buy into it.
Yes. That was where the fall happened. She did. And these are people who are used to dealing with people with disabilities, but you have to remember too, I mean, who among us, especially at a camp where you're trying to help people, is going to say, are you really disabled? I mean, there are just certain questions you don't ask.
Well, you're right. You see, that's like seeing a dog in a grocery store. You can't go up and ask him, so is this a working dog? What's going on? You can't ask because you could be, part of a suit.
Yeah, but it's just also like, who lies about that?
Yep.
Who lies about being disabled? So
sitting down with Bethany Turner, I mean, we're talking about a heart of gold here. I mean, she did not have to dedicate her life, but Bethany really did.
She did. She's one of these people that is just truly good. I mean, she's just really good. The rest of us, we kind of like, oh, we like, we'll do good things and, and all of us like to do good things, but Bethany just dedicates her life to helping other people, or she did. I mean, after this has happened, she stopped kind of volunteering, and what a loss to humanity that you lose Bethany's heart that wants to just help people. I mean, she just really wants to help people.
I mean, she got that call from the camp. I mean, and I cannot imagine what I would have said if I would have received that phone call.
Yeah, just utter shock.
How many tears are you counting here? Because I mean, as a journalist, I mean, come on. I mean, there's no way that you're going into this with a dry face. I mean, you've got to be sharing some serious tears here.
Well, when I'm talking to people, I try not to. I mean, obviously, I'm going to show some, feeling for what they're saying, but you also try to be a professional about it. And if I start. I don't usually do that because if I start crying, then it doesn't help the person who's telling the story. But obviously, you can't hear the things, hear things like this and not deeply feel it. But you have to remember too that, of course, one of the job hazards of journalism is that we regularly have to ask people about the worst thing that has ever happened to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like Jesus on the cross. We all celebrate it, but yet it was the worst day of his life.
Yes, yes, yes.
But I got to ask you a question, though, only because the medical system, did she keep changing her name or something? Because why didn't the medical system pick up on this path?
Well, I don't think she ever I don't, there are people with Munchausen's who go from doctor to doctor and try to fool doctors, but as far as I know, she didn't fool doctors. She would just change. It was mostly nonprofit.
Right.
Or, caring, the random caring person, like the poor lady who was a school teacher in St. Louis. And, she convinced, Sarah convinced her for years that she had a granddaughter and that the granddaughter had died. And so I think, I don't really think she interacted with the medical system that much. I mean, I can't be sure, but it was, mostly individual people. And of course, they were in different places in the country and in different situations, so they didn't know each other.
I mean, in reality, there is an illness here, but it's not cancer. It's not muscular dystrophy. The illness is mental, but the way that she could switch characters is like, wow, but what mental condition?
Well, if she has one, and again, I don't know that she's been diagnosed with anything, but it sure sounds a lot like Munchausen syndrome. And I learned a lot, and I had this interesting conversation with the Munchausen's expert, and that's in episode 5. I learned a lot about just the condition and the motivation for people doing that in my conversation with him. And one of the things that surprised me is people who do this, they not only do it for the attention, which is of course the obvious, the attention, you get sympathy from people. But he told me that sometimes people who do things like this, they do it for the cruelty. They do it for the purpose of humiliation, because perhaps they have been in a situation before where they've been humiliated and they want to control that. I mean, that the motivation for this goes beyond just the need for attention.
I live a life where it's like, if I have pain, I do everything I can to take care of the pain. I don't fake the pain because I don't want the pain. I'm always afraid I'm gonna get like black magic. I'm gonna they always say don't put black magic on anybody because you have to endure it first. I mean, for her to fake this, how does that sit in her heart?
I don't know. And did she realize the pain? I mean, there are two possibilities, right? Either she didn't realize the extent to which she was really traumatizing people and hurting them, or she did realize it and she didn't care. Well, those are the two possibilities.
What about the about face? She wasn't the victim when she went to California. She was the counselor. I mean, I was shocked to see that.
Yeah. And Aaron, who's, golly, talk about people with a heart of gold. I mean, Aaron in California, and she kept that up for 11 years.
God.
Even after she met Aaron as a counselor at that camp, I mean, she subjected Aaron to multiple emotional traumas over that time.
Whew. I'm meditating right now because I mean it's so hard to digest, and yet you want to pray for people like Aaron. You want to talk about Bethany, and you want to talk about Liz and Brian and stuff like that, because I mean there's such innocent lives that they changed, but now do they trust?
Right. I mean their trust in people is very shaken. But we should also pray for the best for Sarah, really, because it's hard to have empathy for people who don't have it for you, and yet as human beings we are asked to do that. We are asked to wish for the best even for people like Sarah.
We need to let listeners know the name of the podcast, which is on iHeartRadio, is Sympathy Pains. Were any laws broken here? Because it seems like that she should be in jail.
Well, I don't want to give any spoiler alerts.
Okay, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. No Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah. Let's just say if you want to know what happened to her, listen through to the end.
Wow. I mean, because it just seems I'm blown away. First of all, when I dove into it and really got involved in the journey with this story, I mean that's what I love about podcasting is that this is not a 2-minute story on the 5 o'clock news. This is not the front page or the 6th page of a newspaper. You really dive into this story and take us.
Yeah, I mean that's the beauty of podcasts is that you can tell a story, and you can spend a lot of time telling one particular story, and it's I think maybe. I don't know. I've kind of wondered because I'm a print journalist and I've often wondered why the impact of a podcast can be so much greater. And I think this is just my speculation. You might have other ideas as an audio person, but I think one of the reasons is that, when a story is in your ears all day, it's a lot more intimate experience. You experience it a lot deeper perhaps than when you're reading. But I don't know. That's just a guess of mine. And so, yeah, and then you take listeners on this journey that lasts for, a few hours.
Well, you're absolutely right about the writing versus the audio and stuff like that, because, I mean, they both have to go hand in hand because podcasting started because of writers, because of bloggers and people sharing the story. It's just that they wanted to hear that voice, or that creative person inside wanted to have a voice somewhere. And I thought, oh, wow, here it is. Let's go here. But the thing is that you can't read a newspaper while you're driving a car, but you can listen to a podcast.
Yes. And I think that's the thing is people listen to podcasts while they're doing something else. Yeah. You can go for a walk, you can go for a run, you can clean your house, you can listen to a podcast and do something else. You can do work in the yard. And I think that is a big draw of it.
Do you still feel like a journalist? Because there's a lot of people that look at me and say, well, you're not in radio anymore. You're a podcaster. I'm going, well, no, I'm still a broadcaster. I mean, come on now. Don't take that away from me.
Oh, I'm definitely still a journalist. I'm just an audio journalist. Yeah, I will always be a journalist. I love the job. I will never do anything else. And I'm lucky that I've been able to make a living doing the thing that I love. I mean, how much of a gift is that?
Making that transition from the print to what you're doing now, do you miss those directors? Are you using the tools that they once gave you along the way, and you're using that as a way of saying, okay, this is how much I'm going to say. We can dive a little bit deeper, but I do have, I have boundaries that I need to keep within.
Well, I have a lot of say. I mean, I have, producers above me who make decisions, but it so far the teams I've worked with, it's been great collaborations. I mean, if there are things that I really want to do or not do, I haven't had a situation with any podcast I've done, including Sympathy Pains, that where there was a conflict about what to do. I mean, there were discussions about should we do this or not, or how do we tell this story, but I've never had a story where it's like I put my foot down, I'm going to do it this way or not. It's the people I work with are not like that.
Well, when you have a podcast like Sympathy Pains, I know, because I live the lifestyle, the amazing amount of time that goes into it. From setting up the interviews to executing the interviews to producing the interviews. Now you've got to do the post interview. I mean, what did you do? How was your life personally changed because of something like Sympathy Pains?
Well, yeah, these podcasts, and I mean, they take a long time to put together if you want to do it right. I mean, it takes to do like an in-depth 6-part podcast. I mean, like all of my podcasts have had 6 parts, and it takes, the better part of a year or more to really put it together, to do the interviews, just to do the reporting and get the information, because it's a lot of time and it consumes a lot of ground. And so you have to do the reporting to be able to tell the story. So that takes the most time. And then the interviews, and then of course you write the scripts and you do the editing and the recording. But the reporting itself is the thing that really takes forever getting the information, because, you want to get the most complete and thorough and fair story that you possibly can.
Yeah, because I mean, while you're sitting down with someone like Liz and Brian, and you're asking the questions or you're sharing the questions, and then you go into the studio to drop the vocal tracks. I mean, that's two completely different personalities. Do you still you have to be like me and you go, that's not how I felt when we brought this. I need to get back into that mindset.
Yeah, to some degree, but before I'm writing a script, I always like re-listen to the interview a few times.
Yep.
So it all gets in my head. So it never, when I'm working on a project like this, it never leaves my head. I could probably get more sleep if it did, but it never leaves my head.
Oh my God! If you could see how much melatonin is being swallowed these days, because people can't shut off that voice in the head. To me, I'm going, it's your creativity. Listen to it. It wants attention.
Yeah. Although it'd be nice if it didn't want attention at 2 a.m.
So let's put focus on Liz and Brian, because I keep bringing them up. I mean, Sarah said that she had stage 4 cancer. How do you prepare for a conversation with Liz and Brian after the fact?
Just do as much research as possible. And I think any good journalist, any interviewer, you listen. You have to listen. You listen to the story. You get the details. I mean, I already, I went into it, of course, knowing generally what had happened to them, but there was a lot that I learned. Talked to them for several hours, and and you want to know not only what she did, but the impact of what she did. I mean, that was also pretty devastating when all of these people found out that she was not who she said she was.
I got to openly admit to you, Sympathy Pains, in listening to it, it's one of those podcasts that will make you talk out loud. When you're listening to it, driving in the car, you will sit there and make noises, because you're right. You hear their emotions and stuff like that. And you want to just give them words from your own heart. And you hope to God that they're hearing it millions of miles away.
Yeah, I think people have reached out to them and everyone who was affected. And, yeah, I mean, and it's hard to understand unless you've been there. I mean, that's one thing that I think everyone should remember. It's what I try to remember. I mean, you might think to yourself, if something like this happened to me, I'd just say, well, that kind of sucked. Yeah. And then I'd move on, right. But you don't know that, and you don't know how it feels, and you don't know how it feels to like so completely trust someone and then immediately have that turned on its head. You don't know how you would react.
Well, Liz and Brian, they wanted answers, and I mean, they actually reached out to Dr. Phil.
Yes. There's a whole Dr. Phil component to this, which just people have to listen. it's too hard to explain, but yes, there's a whole Dr. Phil part of the show.
Oh my God. And that's the reason why I'm planting seeds. I want listeners to go, my God, I've got to go listen to this. My God, what are they talking about?
Yes. I mean, it's hard to, like, when I try to, even when I was working on this and I try to tell like a family or friend, I try to explain this story, and it's just so hard to explain. That's why it takes, 6 episodes to really explain it.
It's not enough, though. I want more, Laura, because I mean, I feel like that there's stuff on the cutting room floor that I didn't get to hear.
There's always stuff on the cutting room floor, and there's always stuff on the cutting room floor. Oh, but you do get you get the story. I didn't leave off anything important.
I love it. You got to come back to this show anytime in the future, Laura. The door is always going to be open for you.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed talking to you.
Will you be brilliant today, okay?
Thanks, you too.